There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
Yesterday, the presidential party and members of Congress and whatnot, the hoi polloi of Washington for the most part, went up to Washington's National Cathedral for a national prayer event. And there at the lectern was Bishop Marianne Edgar Bood, and she gave a sermon that, you know, it's described as a sermon, but really it was a lecture where she told the new president, go easy on migrants and refugees and members of the LGBTQ community. If you missed it, it's gotten a lot of support in some quarters and a lot of criticism. Here she is.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Oh my God.
It's always good to learn. What was that, John, or was that Paul?
I don't know, she didn't go through scripture. Okay,
right.
She gave a political speech.
Absolutely.
And as someone that comes from generations of preachers, I would have walked out. I commend the president for being graceful, but I'm J.D. Vance. I'm looking crazy. Like, what is she talking about doing a sermon? I don't think it was the appropriate time. If you had something to say to the president that may be a little political, if you wanted to talk about the president exercising mercy, then you could have asked for the president for a few minutes of his time and said, Mr. President, this is the issue that I feel. But don't get up there and try to preach a sermon that you cite no scripture for.
Well, she's not going to talk to him because during the George Floyd riots back in 2020, she said she'd given up trying to speak to Trump and said that he needed to be replaced. So, you know,
look at the children. There's children there too that are hearing this message.
Well, here's the thing. You know, the president's team should have known that she could have said things that were inappropriate for, or, you know, stuff that they didn't need to hear or was not appropriate.
Just Google her.
That's all they would have to do. But instead, they put him in that position where he's in the front row.
Why was she selected? Is she's
the bishop,
the rector of
that bishop of that particular national cathedral. Here she is last night on CNN explaining what she wanted to do.
I was speaking to the president because I felt that he has this moment now where he feels charged and empowered to do what he feels called to do, and I wanted to say, you know, there is room for mercy. There's room for a broader compassion. We don't need to portray with a broad cloth in the harshest of terms some of the most vulnerable people in our society.
So Trump wants an apology, and he made that clear. He said the so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal immigrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that is taking part in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and uninspiring. She is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. You got this historic moment and she decides to give a lecture. A self-important person who probably had AOC jot some notes down before.
You know what? I mean, she has every right to her opinion. We all have an opinion on this issue.
Right.
But I don't like it when ministers bring politics into the pulpit and try to lecture you. So I agree with you. Maybe pull him aside after the service and say, Mr. President, may I talk to you for a little bit? There's something in my community that bothers me that I need to tell you about. And just have an adult conversation, but do it privately, because now everyone's talking about this.
The issue that she's asking for mercy on when it comes to the border, did you go and speak to any of the families that were killed by illegals? How about coming into New York and talk to the cops that had fire shot at them? Did you ask for mercy for the cops? I mean, that's why you don't get involved in this. She could have said, let's bring the country together. Let's have the spirit of Christ. But she went into some political, radical leftist. I don't know that church. I don't know the structure. But whoever is in command should have a look at this.
Well,
this is not biblical doctrine that she's speaking from the pulpit.
What denomination is this? Is it Episcopal?
I think Episcopalian, I think. Here's the thing. If she's going to be the bishop and she's going to lecture the president every time he goes to events like that, maybe it's time for the president and Washington in general to stop going to the National Cathedral.
I'm for that too.
Listen, not far from the White House is St. Matthew's, where we baptized my son Peter, or go to the Basilica at Catholic University. It's referred to as America's Catholic Church. I doubt that they would ever make anything political. And if you remember, at the inaugural, who gave one of the opening prayers? Cardinal Dolan. Was he political? Absolutely not. He was looking to the future. So Trump just don't go back.
Donald Trump said he's non-denominational now, and so go to a non-denominational church. You're not going to get a lecture like that.
Well, I'll put it this way: I wouldn't be. Why doesn't he just say, if you don't, get rid of her or change your tone? If the president of the United States decides not to go to the National Cathedral, that would be titanic news.
It would be,
and it would really put pressure on her to start doing the whole bishop thing. I don't know what form she filled out and how many interviews she went through, but you realize for her to get that job and do that and to do that mass, how many people had to sign off on it?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like, it's not like she's like,
what's the structure here?
I was just a hole in the schedule. I'm filling in for somebody.
She's had that job for a while. She absolutely, to your point, Ainsley, she is absolutely protected by the First Amendment.
Course.
And she can say anything she wants, but just, the Trump team probably should have looked a little into her background. Is she gonna go ahead and sandbag him?
But she's supposed to be representing the great book, okay?
Right.
And nothing that she said there was representative of that. She's saying mercy, but it says nothing about obeying the laws of the land.
I think people who have her opinion are reading the whole border situation in the wrong way. It's not that he doesn't have compassion. Of course he has compassion on every single person. Everyone's God's child. It's not about that. It's about taxpayers paying so much for other people. We're pouring into the tax base.
That's right.
And they're giving that money to people who are not here legally and are not contributing. That's all it is. And the crime, the people that are murdering Blake and Riley, yes, you're right. She should have a conversation with their parents and have mercy on those families.
Which just passed. Blake and Riley, the Blake and Riley bill, and had over 40 votes in the House alone.
Right, goes back to the House today.
But she wants to be famous. That's why she hops on CNN. That's why she sat there. And there's video of her in 2020 with her ridiculous mask on, outdoors, with the little vent on the side, screaming about Donald Trump and what he should be, and the George Floyd riots. That's not somebody that wants to be a leader for everybody.
No, she shouldn't be in clergy.